Well, today is September the 11th, a infamous day in our history. And it's funny, that particular day, back so many years ago, was pretty much just like this. It was a sunny, warm day. I remember it quite well. I remember what I was doing and where I was at the time and what I did afterwards. Um, I'm in a urban forested area that, it's got too many people in it as far as I'm concerned. And it's one of the things I hate going to areas where urban forests have way too many people and they got way too many nefarious characters. Maybe I'll go in on that someday about some of the nonsense that I have witnessed uh, in the forested areas in the area that I live, where I grew up, I should say, where I grew up, and some of the stuff that I saw. So if I want to visit, get out into what I call wild places, I've got to drive some distance just so I don't have to be around people. I know it doesn't even make sense. And it's pretty quiet, but I'm looking at various cars and it's just a shame. I like the solitude often. I like the solitude of a wild place. I don't care if it's a river or a swamp or whatever. I like the solitude. I come to these places to get away from people, not to be around them. So what I wanted to talk about real quick was, about the debate last night, and I watched it, and I came apart with a couple things, and I'm clearly biased, and I'm not going to deny that I'm biased, right? But what I want to say is, how can you tell when somebody is telling the truth or not? One of the things I've learned with our media is they no longer investigate anything. Oh, they do this Google fact check nonsense. But let me explain this. Donald Trump has been saying for months that the powers that be probably let in officially like 10 million illegals. Truth be told, he seems to think it's probably 21 to 25%, 21 to 25 million. Now, being an ex-president, I bet you he has access to information that we don't. Don't think for 5 minutes the guy doesn't get briefed about things, or he's got people still in the government that tell him these things. He's probably right. But you notice that the media doesn't check on that? If you wanted to hit Donald Trump with falsehoods, why don't you hit him on with that? Here's another thing that he said. He said that there are countries across the world whose crime is down because they have opened up their prisons and are insane asylums. He says this all the time. Notice that the media never says that's false. Have you noticed that? They don't fact check that at all, which means it's probably true. And I'll give you precedent for why it's true. It's just something that I remember from my teenage years when Reagan was president. There was what they called the Cuban boat crisis, and you had Cuban illegals flooding over here on anything that would float, trying to get to Florida. And Castro was in power at the time. Castro was a communist dictator. I mean, young people don't realize that. And one of the things Castro did was he emptied out the prisons and he emptied out his mental institutions. And why wouldn't he? And why wouldn't he? So here's the thing I want you to really think about. We got stuff going on in little towns all over the place. Like, let's use Springfield, Ohio as an example because it's in the news and was brought up in the debate. And they said it's a hoax and it's not true. No confirmed stat, So you have a town of maybe 40,000 people and they brought in 20,000 Haitians. Totally changed the dynamics of this small town. Small town, 40,000 people is not a lot of people. totally changed the dynamics of this town. The people living there are pissed off, rightly so. So how do you get a bunch of Haitians? And if you don't know, Haiti is a country that shares an island in the Caribbean with the Dominican Republic. Dominican Republic is nice. Haiti's a shithole. If you don't believe me, go on Google Maps, hit the satellite view, and look at that island. And tell me which part of the island, just from the satellite view, which part is the shithole and which part isn't. Just do that, and you'll see. So how does poor people with no money get there all the way to Ohio? How does that happen? Trump says there's immigrants, and prisoners and people come from all over the world into this country, even as far as equatorial Africa. Take a look on a map, see where that's at. How do you get from the interior heart of Africa all the way over to the United States? How does that happen? Well, I'm going to tell you. See, this is what the media doesn't do its job. It isn't hard. You think these people are walking over here? You think they're flying over here? You think they're getting on boats? There is some type of infrastructure with money in place getting these people here. Now, whether it's under the table or it's illegal with cartels, I couldn't tell you, but isn't that what reporters are for? Isn't that what they're supposed to do? They're supposed to investigate and win awards for this. They don't do this stuff anymore. They don't investigate nothing. If you want the truth, go on YouTube and look around. Now, I'm going to tell you something. 2 days ago, I was looking into this so-called hoax about people consuming felines and waterfowl in a state in the Midwest. Now, this wouldn't surprise me because these are third world people who know what hunger's about. And when you come into a country, let me give you a little example of something. Third worlders eat their wildlife to non-existence. Put it this way, if you're reduced to eating songbirds, you come from a shithole country. And most of these countries they eat their songbirds. Right down, migrating songbirds. Because you're that hungry. My aunt and my uncle, my family came from the Depression, and I'll never forget one thing they always told me. People will do anything with an empty stomach to fill an empty stomach. And they were absolutely right about that. So you come to this country and you see a park with a pond or a lake in it filled with migratory geese, federally protected geese, and they're tame because they're used to people, ducks and geese, and they're tame because they're used to people, because people go down and feed them bread and stuff. You don't think these people aren't going to grab them and eat them? You don't think that happens? I had firsthand experience with this many years ago near my home with a lake that's used primarily for fishing. And the immigrants that were coming there were taking every turtle in the lake. They would catch the turtles and keep them, catch the turtles. Look, there are game laws and rules. If you break them, you're technically a poacher. And let me tell you something. I've had experience with this. Just trapping a few squirrels that got in my attic on a fence because they were coming and going on in my house on a high privacy fence. And a neighbor saw me doing this. I got a visit from conservation police. Let me tell you what a nightmare that was, because squirrels are considered a game species. Now, in an urban center, people don't think about that, but in the state I live in, the common gray squirrel is considered a game species, and if you take one without a hunting license or a nuisance permit, you're technically poaching. Trust me, I have an understanding with this stuff. You don't think these people aren't doing this? You don't think these people aren't, consuming felines and canines when they can? To them, it's free food. Don't discount this stuff. When the media tells you it's a hoax, it's probably true. But the worst part about it is not a single one of these worthless scumbags can get out of their office, out of their studio, and go down and do some investigative reporting. They don't even bother. They don't even bother. I'm gonna try to leave it on this note, and I'm not a xenophobe, and but I'm a realist, right? And when you import millions of people from other countries with languages that we don't even have interpreters for, and the government subsidizes their housing and their food and whatever else they're doing, you're looking at the end of your country. If you want an example of this, just go to Minnesota and see what importing a whole bunch of Somalians does, right? There are countries that have Western values, and there are countries that have Eastern values, and they can be diametrically opposed. Okay, and I'm not talking about let's just say some cultures assimilate into the United States better than others, and some of them learn how to get along, some of them don't, and the media will never report on it, the media will never talk about it, and it angers me to no end. I'm not very hopeful about the future of our nation for multiple reasons. On the plus side of it, I got maybe 20 years left at the most. But you know what? There are children, grandchildren in my family. They're going to have to navigate some difficult waters. And I cannot even get away from people, man. Oh my God, here comes some guy walking over here to get on a park bench. I got to drive freaking 100 miles away just so I can get some peace from other people. It's maddening. All right, I'm going to call this short because I don't want to have to share a conversation with someone I really don't want to talk to. All right, pay attention. Pay attention to the lies and the stupid stuff that come out of the mouths of polished politicians. Because in the end, they're really full of it. And they never tell you the truth anyway. Until next time.